Thank you. Before I get started, you may remember me as, the guy who was here before hitting a lot of drums, and it probably looked like I was doing some crazy stuff, but actually every note that I played there was written, and it's not in your program, so I thought I would mention that the composer's name is Thomas Osborne, and that piece is called Warm It Up. That was actually some excerpts from a longer piece called Warm It Up. Tom wrote that piece for me when we were both graduate students at Rice University. And another fun thing that happened to me while I was at Rice University was I took a trip to Ghana, West Africa. So at that time I was studying orchestral music at Rice. I didn't know anything about African music. I didn't know anything about Africa in general, besides, I guess, what we all know, what we all see on the news. But this opportunity came up for a new experience, so I jumped on board. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about my experiences and some of the fun things I learned about African music, and it's important that I talk about, we have to be clear when we say African music. Africa is a big place. There's something like 1,500 languages spoken there. There are hundreds of different tribal and ethnic identities there. So it's almost silly to talk about African music as if it sounded like one thing and not another. But there are some trends, some common threads that run through the music that occur in different places and in different villages' traditions. And so it's these trends that I'm going to talk about through the perspective of the tiny slice of African music I learned with the Ewe and later the Lobi tribes. For instance, something that happens in a lot of different places in Africa is we have music that focuses and makes prevalent percussion instruments. A percussion instrument is anything you hit or scrape or shake in order to make a musical sound. This was convenient for me because I am a percussionist. And as you would expect, music that deals a lot with percussion has a lot of rhythmic complexity to it, much more so than, say, music that deals primarily with, for instance, the solo voice. So that's one trend of African music. Now, the trip I took was divided into two parts. The first part, I spent 5 weeks in the village of Kopayia, which is a little village in the Lake Volta region of Ghana. And then the next 3 weeks, I spent in Accra, Accra is the capital of Ghana. It's a big city, there's about 1 million people there, and it has a lot of the things that we associate with big cities. But Kopayia, where I spent the first 5 weeks, this is a village, and this is what you think of when you think of an African village. So no electricity, no running water. It bears mention here that we all know people who are adventurous and courageous travelers who are completely comfortable hopping on a plane with nothing but a fanny pack and a phrase book and going to some exotic place that we've barely heard of. I am not one of those people. I enjoy hotels. There was no hotel in Kopayia. So when I was there, my days were spent learning. I had 2 hours of lessons in the morning and 2 hours of lessons in the afternoon every day for 5 weeks. And I would learn this music by rote. So Ghana, the Ewe tribe, their music is percussion ensemble music. It's group music, which means that there would be 5, 6, 7 musicians performing this stuff, each with their own instrument, each playing their own individual part. Typically, drums of various shapes and sizes, plus rattles and bells. So I would learn one part at a time. I would start with one instrument, and my teacher would play for me a rhythm, and I would play it back for them, and I would, one rhythm at a time, learn an entire part on one instrument. And when I'd learned an entire piece, I would literally move over one chair and hand off that instrument and take the next instrument and learn that part for the entire piece. And when I say learning by rote, that's what that means is the teacher would play a rhythm for me, and I would play it back to him. So, for instance, let's try learning a little bit by rote. I'm going to say a rhythm, and I want you to say it back to me exactly how you hear it. So, for instance, da-da-ga-da-da-bum-ba-bum. Doon-cha, clack, clack. Very good. Dugga, 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 boom. So good, you guys are great. Now give me the first rhythm you learned. Ready, and... I know, right? That was 20 seconds ago. I don't remember it either. I did this for 2 hours in the morning, and then we went and got lunch, and I did it for 2 more hours in the afternoon. My head was killing me. I never felt so stupid. I was, I have advanced degrees, and we're gonna, like, great, what did I just do 30 seconds ago? I don't remember. I don't know. So this is how I learned these pieces. I learned 5 pieces over the course of 5 weeks, in total about 40 minutes of music. And for every piece, the first part I would learn was the bell part. When we talk about the bell, basically what we mean is, imagine a big cowbell and a little cowbell joined at the base, and you play them one at a time with a stick. The bell part tends to be the rhythmic foundation of any given piece. And it tends to be one measure that's repeated over and over and over again. And that's another common trend that we see in African music is rhythmic patterns that are frequently repeated. So the first piece I learned was called gahu, and the bell pattern sounded like this. That was it. It's fairly simple rhythm, but there's a lot going on there. It's 8 counts long, and I'm clapping on the 1st, 4th, and 7th counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it's grouped into 2 3s and a 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Sort of basic, but kind of intricate. The number 8 being the total number of beats isn't particularly unique to African music nor to Western music. But the fact that they start you off by feeling it in 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, almost implying that we're going to continue on like that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But then that third beat has been shortened, and it's almost like a little stutter step. If you were to move to that beat, it would almost make you stumble. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Right? These are, the beginning of the pattern is a little bit of a surprise. You don't expect it to happen again quite as soon as it does. This is something musicians call syncopation, which is just a note or an accent in an unexpected place. And it's another common trend and a common feature that we see in African music, as is this ambiguity between a feel of 3 and a feel of 2. This happens quite frequently. So that was the bell part to gahu. There's another piece called ajogbo. And ajogbo, the bell part, is a little bit more complicated, and it sounds like this. "12 counts instead of 8, and I'm clapping on the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th of those counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1. And we can hear the syncopation there. There's a little bit of a surprise. We go along at a certain pace, and then suddenly we have a shortened beat that puts us off our game. And this idea of a complexity of feel goes much deeper with the bell pattern for ajogbo. And I'll demonstrate on this instrument. This is not a bell, and I'll talk about this instrument later. But the ajogbo pattern, I'll play in my right hand. And you should feel to clap along with my left hand. We'll start on just the downbeat, so we'll all be feeling it in 1. We can also divide it into 2. Good. We can also divide it into 3. We can divide it into 4. We can divide it into 6. Good. And stop. We can also divide it into 8. You may want to let me try this one on my own. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm not just talking about theoretically dividing this pattern into 8 beats. There's literally a part in Ajog Bo where someone plays the bell pattern I just did with my right hand, and someone else plays that 8-note spaced out pattern that I did with my left hand. This is both fascinating and frustrating to any Western musician that tries to learn traditional African folk music. The way we feel music, it's what we would call, I guess, the beat. It's in 3, or it's in 2, or it's in 4, and we tend to all feel it together, and we all feel it the same way. Again, I'm talking about Western music. So for instance, the waltz, we all feel it in 3. A march, we all tend to feel, depending on the march, usually in 4. A Bruce Springsteen song, we all feel the beat together, right? That's the beat. If you're in a club and you don't know where the beat is, you don't want to be that guy, right? Trust me, from experience, you don't want to be that guy who doesn't know where the beat is. And so this idea of the duality between we're in 3, we're in 4, we're in 6, we're in 8, it was maddening and frustrating because I just wanted to know where it was. And it wasn't really a question that had any meaning because I asked it, where's the beat? It didn't make a lot of sense to the musicians I was working with. Another point of frustration for me personally was this idea of downbeat. Now, we cheated a little bit, and I told you where the downbeat was, and really, that's where my downbeat is. I declared it to be right there, and it doesn't have to be there. So I started here, but it doesn't have to start there. It can be... there's different ways of arranging it. Oh, yeah. Or, let's see. Those are all acceptable downbeats. And so by saying there's lots of different downbeats, we're basically saying there isn't a downbeat. And believe me, I asked. Where's the downbeat? Nobody knew what the heck I was talking about. And this led to problems when I was learning by rote because someone would teach me a rhythm and I would learn it, and then the bell player would show up and start playing, and I heard the downbeat of the bell pattern in a different place than I heard the downbeat of the pattern I had just learned. And it caused me, I had to scratch everything out and start over again. I never really lost my Westerner's need for a downbeat. It never really went away. But I managed to learn my 5 pieces in 5 weeks, and I struggled through. At the end, they gave me sort of a combination final exam and performance. So first, they sat me down and they just quizzed me. They said, go over and sit by the kiddie and give us the kinka part to the kiddie. And like that, they would just grill me on these parts. And then at the end, we played all 5 pieces, and I played the lead drum part on all of the 5 pieces. The lead drum part is basically the last chair you sit in. That's the most important part. And you wind up, there's a little bit of improvisation, and you control the flow of the piece with that lead drum part. And afterwards, everybody clapped, and they said, you're a master drummer. They were either being kind or cruel. I can't figure out which when they said that, but it was nice of them to say. So that was the first part of my trip. And then the final 3 weeks were spent in Accra, again, the capital city, where I studied this instrument with Kakraba Lobi, who was, before he passed on, one of the great virtuosos of this instrument. He was a national treasure. And we had lessons in much the same way. He would play something for me, and I would play it back for him. Now, this is the Gil, or the Gili, is a 14-bar pentatonic xylophone. So 14 bars, that means what you think it means. Pentatonic means our scale has 5 notes in it. This is common of a lot of music in Africa, also in China and Indonesia. And for comparison's sake, our music, Western music, tends to have 7 notes in the scale, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and then we're back to do. That's our 7-note scale. This one has a 5-note scale. And like all acoustic instruments, it has something that vibrates and then something that holds air to vibrate along with it. So for instance, if you're playing a guitar, the strings vibrate, but they wouldn't make any sound with an acoustical guitar if it wasn't for that box of air that's behind the strings. Similarly, we could hit these bars and they would vibrate, but they wouldn't make any noise without the resonators. The resonators here are calabash gourds that have been dried out, and there's one hanging underneath each of the 14 bars there. And the calabash gourds have holes in them, and these holes are covered with like a spider webbing paper, spider silk. It's like a fibrous paper made out of spider webs, and it will cause the instrument to buzz. You'll hear it buzz in just a second. The piece I'm going to play for you, called Bawa, is structured similarly to a lot of, for instance, Western piano music, in that I'll be playing a pattern with my left hand that provides a little bit of a rhythmic and harmonic underpinning, and this will be in the lower range of the instrument. And then with my right hand, I'll be playing melodies in the upper range of the instrument. This is, Chopin wrote like this. Mozart, Stevie Wonder, all the piano pieces we're used to have a similar structure. But there are, of course, differences, and hopefully when I play you can hear them. You can listen for some syncopation. You might hear the downbeat. If you hear the downbeat in the right place from the get-go, you're smarter than me, because this is one of those pieces where I started playing it, and then the next day, I can go back and look at my notes. The next day was, everything above is wrong. Please see below. The melodies I'm going to play with my right hand, they do have some lyrics. I'm not going to sing them, and you can thank me for that later. But I wanted to just share one of the lyrics with you. It goes like this. That girl, she always hangs out with the boys. That girl, she always hangs out with the boys. That girl, she always hangs out with the boys. No wonder she's always pregnant. Thank you.